Future Harvest CASA. My name is Yona Sipos, and I work on program development at the Chesapeake Foodshed Network through Local Concepts, a consulting firm which provides the development and backbone support for the CFN, or Chesapeake Foodshed Network. Also on the line is Christy Gabbard, who's the owner of Local Concepts and the coordinator for the Chesapeake Foodshed Network. Before jumping into the coffee talk and handing this over to Joanna Winkler from Future Harvest CASA and to the presenters who will actually be sharing all this wonderful information with you today, I'll just give you a very brief overview of the CFN. The Chesapeake Foodshed Network is a group of organizations, businesses, funders, agencies, and other change agents working across the Chesapeake watershed to build a stronger and more resilient food system. Up at the top of this screen, you should see the working vision for the network, and the rest of the screen is a picture of our network building blocks. The foundation of our network is all about building connections and getting to know one another, building relationships and trust with the thought that as we know one another better, we might over time see opportunities to align and to work collectively toward action. We invite anyone that supports our vision to be part of the network. I'll pass it over now to Joanna, and she'll be able to share with you some more detail, of course, about Future Harvest and about how you can ask questions. And I'll just mention here that after the webinar, which we are recording, we'll send out a recording of the presentation and a PDF of the slides. And Joanna will share more about that and what else will be sent out after the presentation. Thank you so much for all being here this morning, and Joanna, I'll pass it over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Yona, and we just wanted to give a big thanks to the Chesapeake Foodshed Network for collaborating on this with us. It's been very helpful, and we appreciate them and their work very greatly. My name is Joanna Winkler, and I'm the Field Programming Manager for Future Harvest CASA, Chesapeake Alliance for Sustainable Agriculture. And we work in a very similar region to the Chesapeake Foodshed Network, as you would imagine. While we serve West Virginia, Virginia, DC, Maryland, and Delaware, we kind of focus our energy and our work around the Chesapeake Bay. And we provide education and advocacy for sustainable and small farms in the region. And that definition of sustainability includes environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability. And you can learn more about all of our educational programming on our website, which is just futureharvestcasa.org. You can go to the next slide, Yona. And this is just a little preview about some of our exciting field days that are coming up later this month, and then in April we're holding a field day at Mutu Orchard in Purcellville, Virginia about growing good transplants. We're doing a 2-day high tunnel intensive down on Virginia's eastern shore, so that's a little later in April. We're also, our annual Cultivate Baltimore Urban Agriculture Workshop series starts in April and goes into May with a full day of hands-on workshops on Saturday, May 7th. And then we're doing a Maryland Gap mock audit, which is going to be on Friday, April 15th down at Turp Farm. So that's, you can register for all of these events on our website as well and find out more information. So that's all that I have about Future Harvest. Just a couple of housekeeping things. So I don't know where my little question box went, but anyway, if you have any questions that come up during the presentations, you can ask them through the questions function, and I'm going to be monitoring that and then asking them to the presenters at a specific juncture. So probably like closer to the end of presentations, we'll save some time for questions because we're going to have two different presenters today. Feel free to use the chat to correspond with one another, or to talk to presenters if something is coming up or if you're having technical difficulties or anything like that. But for questions to presenters, please use the question function. And if there ends up being questions that we don't have time to answer as part of the webinar, we're going to be sending a follow-up email that's going to have some additional resources and a survey for you guys to take, and also hopefully some answers to those unanswered questions as well. And with that, I am going to hand it over to our first presenter, Whitney Pipkin. Let me make sure that I can do this. Here we go. There we go.
Hello. So everyone can see what I see?
Yes.
All
Looks
right.
great, Whitney.
Well, I'm Whitney Pipkin, the first presenter today, and we're going to talk about building a website to tell your firm's story. We'll hear later from Joshua, who's more of the expert on the actual mechanics of building a website, and he'll give you kind of a walkthrough Squarespace. So just a little bit about me. I'm a freelance journalist working in the Chesapeake Food Shed, if you will. Written for a lot of local publications and for the Bay Journal, where I'm on staff. I also have a couple websites that I maintain personally. So I write a lot about a lot of farms like yours, and I look at a lot of your websites. First and foremost, I'm looking for information. Is it easy to find? Can I find your phone number? Can I read about a quick story of your farm before I decide to write about you? And then as a customer, what does your web page say about your farm? Am I able to get a sense of what your farm's about, what's important to you, just like I would get if I met you at a farmer's market? So let's start with the basic question. Do you need a website? Obviously that's why you're here. Maybe you've already decided the answer to that question is yes. And we are here to agree with you on that. So let's look at some of the obvious reasons why you need a website as a farm, and why farming these days, especially if you're selling to local audiences, involves more than working in the field. So you have customers that you want to sell probably directly to some of them, and these customers have to be able to find you. Most importantly in this market, they need to be able to verify that you are the type of farmer that you say you are. And the more ways you can give them tools to verify that, the better, right? You don't want them just jumping in their car and driving to your farm every time they have a question. You want them to be able to easily find that information online, and if they're new to your farm and your concept, to be able to really verify that with your website and say, okay, these guys are legit. They do look like they know what they're talking about and are farming the way they say they are. So the next thing you want to think about is your story. What is it? Do you have your elevator pitch down that you tell people maybe at a market? And how are you going to tell that online in a succinct and effective way to customers? Also, you can reach more people online than you can in a one-on-one setting like a farmer's market. You just simply can't have the number of conversations you can have with people in person as you can on your website. So a good-looking website confirms that you're, like I said, that you're legitimate. And when I'm looking for a CSA, for example, in the Northern Virginia area, there are so many options. So I'm looking at a website. I'm looking for a website that's going to make it easy for me to choose you. Maybe that looks like being able to sign up online and go ahead and put in my credit card information. Or maybe that looks like just finding a story that you're telling me as your customer about what I'm going to get by signing up for a whole season with you. So maximize the storytelling efforts you're already doing in person by telling those stories online as well. And also we want to look at your opportunities to sell the product online, so also to boost sales through your website. So if you're going to have a website, please make it a good one. Just as a good website can be a boon for your business, a bad one can send people to another farm. We'll look at some examples in a bit, but basically you want to think about yourself as a business. I know that maybe some farmers, like writers, don't want to spend a lot of time building a website or maintaining it. It's just part of the game that you have to play. So if you don't want to put in the website or put in the time to building and maintaining that website, you still have options, and you should still consider participating in this format. If you're overwhelmed with the thought of doing those things, Josh's demonstration on Squarespace will give you some good first steps. Or you could consider hiring some of the professionals out there. There's no shame in admitting that you are not good at everything that comes with this business, and some things are better done with outsourcing. Also, it's worth considering whether, after this webinar or after some further research, you decide that, I don't want a website. It's better for me to not have a website that I can't put the time into, and to just focus my efforts, even for now, on, let's say, a good and active Facebook page, and maybe coupled with a newsletter that's really keeping people in the loop on a weekly or monthly basis. A lot of small farms function really well with an active Facebook page that gives all the basic information, and then they feel comfortable knowing they can keep that up to date, whereas a website is still too much. So maybe you want to track out in your 1 or 2 year plan a good point where you're ready to jump into a website and you're ready to do it well. So what do you want your website to do for you? There's a lot of things you want to kind of sit down and consider before you sit down at your computer. Maybe you have somebody you can run some ideas by, a business partner, a family friend, or family member, about kind of the big picture for your website, what you want it to accomplish before you sit down to do the nuts and bolts. So some of those questions might be, are you going to now or in the future consider selling products online? So that might be something that makes you lean towards Squarespace versus WordPress as a format, and some of those sites that are going to allow you to add that function in the future or to start out with it. What about CSA signups, like I mentioned? Do you want them to be able to sign up and also pay online, submit a form? You want to have a website that is capable of having those functions. And sometimes those functions are going to come with an extra cost. So that's something you want to research. Is it worth it to you to do that, or would you rather interact via email? Do you want to keep a blog on the website? This is a big question, and I urge you to think about it long and hard before you commit. I have a blog. They're great, but they're also like little children that you have to keep feeding. You can't, and animals, you can't just put it up there and have your intro to my blog, and then 3 years later you haven't ever added to it. If you think that might be your inclination, I would urge you to consider, thinking about whether you really want to maintain that blog. So are you comfortable with using it only periodically? Maybe quarterly, you're committing to a new blog post quarterly, or maybe you have an intern that's really interested in blogging and wants to do it for a while. So just want to keep on top of that process before you get into it, and we'll talk about that a little bit later with some of the examples. And what kind of online relationship do you want to have with customers? So I've heard farmers complain that, especially in direct market, not complain maybe, but bemoan the fact that they're a little too accessible to customers, right? Their phone number is right there on the website, and they have customers tweeting, emailing, calling them at all hours with questions. So it's worth thinking about how accessible do you want to be, and how do you want customers to reach out to you. So if you prefer that to be on Facebook, just make sure you're really available and active there. And then maybe your phone number is a little harder to find on your website, or maybe it's not on there at all. I would encourage you to have a good email contact that's quick and easy to find on your website, and to check that frequently. You never know, I might be trying to contact you to write a story about you, and there's nothing more frustrating than having to click through like 5-10 pages to get your contact information. Also, I'm not a huge fan of the contact me box, so the page where it's contact me and there's no email or phone number, and it's just a box that I have to type into. It feels like it's going into a black hole and I may never hear back from you. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Also, could you do a fact page, a frequently asked questions page, that answers some of the questions you're getting a lot from customers? So can you address there some of the buzzwords that you use? Can you tell people what does free range mean? Why are my eggs $12 and another guy's are $4? You can explain some of those FAQs in one central place, and maybe avoid a few more emails. So that's be thinking before you sit down to start your website, what are the questions I'm getting all the time from people, and is there a way I can effectively explain that online? Also consider whether you want to include customer testimonials. I'll say later that I think those are great for CSAs in particular, but maybe not necessary for everybody. And then we'll talk about sharing your story. So also think about what your customer wants from the website. I'm a big advocate that number one, they want to know about you. Your mode of farming is largely about having a relationship with a farmer. That's why they're signing up for a CSA or paying more for produce, presumably, or signing up for a meat share. Is they want to feel like they know you. So the website is an easy way to kind of give them a window into your world without sitting down in a coffee with each of your customers. So I think this is one of the central purposes of a website. You can't quite accomplish telling your story and controlling your story in social media without having this kind of central place to send them that you can talk about how I got started. So this would be something that's less than 600 words, I would say. You don't want to go on forever. So this is like that beautiful page. Maybe it's your front page. Maybe it's an About Us link that tells your farming story. So not your life story, not where you were born and how many times you've moved, but how you got into farming. Just hit the highlights, okay? This is not about that time, this long story about how you had an epiphany in the aisle at Whole Foods and you've, blah, 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 blah. Get quick to the details. And if this is totally not your cup of tea, again, you can't be good at everything. This is another area that you can outsource. You can even do it for free by having another set of eyeballs, which I would recommend everyone has. Somebody who, another set of eyes that reads everything that goes on your website, just for typos and misspellings, and also just to get that other perspective. And I would say your story in particular, this piece that's going to go up there and stay up there for a long time, should be well thought through. It should go through several drafts. You could run it by maybe a customer that you trust and other friends and farmers. Read a lot of what other farms do and model what you're doing after them. So this should go under a heavy edit a few times and be really something that you're proud of and comfortable with. So everything you read on your page, make sure you have it proofread. And another recommendation I have is for the photos. Another good place to outsource is to have really good photos on your website. So if you're a produce grower, don't take photos in January, right? You know what people want to see. So midsummer, when you're super busy, set an alarm in your calendar to get some good photos taken. Have somebody come out, or your kid with an iPhone even, you can do a lot with that, and get just some good profile photos of you doing what you do in the field with the animals, with big bountiful baskets of produce. Just take those photos. So you can do this with an iPhone if you have good light. Good light is number one. Or if you really want to make sure you get to it, consider hiring someone or a good friend with a good camera. Okay, next up, some examples. So these are some websites. I pulled out just 3 that are good examples, and I would encourage you as you're getting started with your website and as part of your research to go and look at other farm websites in our region and look at particularly your competition. So if a customer is considering a CSA that delivers to Arlington, look at those others that they're going to look at, and how can you get ahead? How can you appeal to them more? How can that information be easier to find? So on this website, this is Heritage Hollow Farms out of Sperryville. So they have an advantage because their female farmer is also a photographer, and so they have beautiful photos throughout the website. But what I wanted to tease out with this screenshot is their nice header, and so under who is this farm, you can read about the farm, which has a unique history. So if you're at a historical farm on a unique landscape, you want to be able to tell that story there. And then they also have their farmer's story. For them, animal agriculture, so they tell a little bit more about breeds and explain that. But you want to have these links here so that somebody who wants just a little bit can go to the first 2 links and get all they need, and somebody who wants to go deeper can continue to walk through your website. So if you're a vegetable grower, this might say how we grow, and you can explain some of your overarching practices and principles instead of talking about animals. And these are also folks, what's interesting about their website is part of their business involves bringing people out to the farm. So you see they have on here twice, visit our farm store. They have a cute little farm store out there, and a lot of their customers do come out and visit for the weekend. And they also have a link about visit Rappahannock County and tourism. So they're really ingrained in their community, and that's something they want to pull out. Maybe it's something else that will set you apart on your farm. So the next slide. This is another good example from our region that's simple. This was not difficult to build or set up, but it also is reflective of the farm and their kind of always changing, always on top of things model. So this is a vegetable grower in suburban Maryland. I took a screenshot of their about page rather than their main page, and that top banner appears on every page, which I like because that banner really reflects what this farm is about. They're really active on Instagram, right? So these are the kinds of photos you see about them if you follow them on Instagram every day. And they have this kind of day in the life feel to their website, I would say. So they also have this great little video to introduce people who are completely new to the farm, and you can watch that, or you can top, they have their social media links. Really active on social media, and so that's something they want to promote up front. If you're not going to be very active, don't send people to a dead page, and I would urge you to not even participate if you're not going to be active. So not every farmer needs to be on Twitter, for example. We'll get to that in a little bit. And if you go to their CSA page, all the information you need to sign up and to pay is right there. You can add a CSA membership to your cart and pay right there. So these are websites you can look at further on your own. But these go a long way to introduce customers to their brand and also make it easy to join as a customer. Sorry. And let's go to the next. So last example here of a good example is Two Boots Farm, also in our region, and Joshua recommended this one, and it struck me as kind of beautiful and artistic, appealing to a certain kind of customer. They also have a great header there at the top with everything you need, and that header stays on each page that you click through. You can still go and click through to the next page with that header. The CSA page here has some of the same factors I mentioned for the last one. And the restaurant page is simple. It just tells restaurants how to contact them if they want more information. So your wholesale customers, they're a different kind of audience. Maybe you're going to conduct more of that business one-on-one, and you're not going to put all your information out there. The farmers market page is a great option. If you're really active in a few farmers markets, you want to tell people where to find you, where to meet you in person. This website has a map on there, an address and hours when the farmers market's open. And so one thing I will pull out, like I mentioned before, their blog is great. It's got some great photos, some great highlights, but they haven't updated it since the summer of 2014, which is fine. But you can, if you're new to this brand, so let's say you go to sign up for their CSA this year, that will give you, give you pause, right? Oh, are they still doing this? They haven't written in, it'll be almost 2 years this summer since they've updated their blog. I hope they're still in business. Now I've got to call or email, and it's just going to make them a little harder for them to verify with your website that you are a farm they want to work with. So blogs are great, like I said, but you want to make sure someone on your team is passionate about doing that and sticking with it. maybe instead you want to have, if you really want a way to tell customers about that one winter and how you got through it, or what farmers do in the winter, maybe you want to pull out some other pages for that aren't advertised as a blog that's going to be ongoing. And then at the bottom, I included one other example that can't be really, that a screenshot won't do justice to, and that's a diversified farm example. So as you scroll down the page, you see that they're doing different kinds of farming, and they explain it really well. And then we'll move on here to a couple of less great examples. So I did these from other watersheds, other food sheds. So here's one that so it's clear as you come to this page that they sort of did this haphazardly, that they're not offering you any more information here than you would get on a Facebook page or even one of those local farm aggregation pages. So in my opinion, they should just stick with those other two things and not have a website up that's going to take away from what they're doing in other platforms, right? So as I said, if you want to do a website, do it and make it a good one. It doesn't have to be complicated. It can be really simple. But go ahead and make that first landing page something that is going to make people want to find out more about you and want to continue the relationship. So this website, they went with one of the less expensive options for starting a website, which involves including ads on their page that they probably don't even want there or aren't aware are there. So this giant USAA ad across the middle of the screen is the main thing you see, which has nothing to do with what they're doing. So some of those free platforms can be kind of awkward with the advertising and just things you want to think about. And if you have a website like this, that's fine. That's why you're here. You can work on it. You can replace this URL with the new great one that you're going to do starting tomorrow. Another example, so this one's better, right? It looks like a farm. It's got some color, but I'll point out just a few things. So I cut out the name of the farm on this one, but it has a name just above in this tagline, naturally homegrown berries and vegetables. So this is maybe a pet peeve of mine, but what does naturally homegrown mean? You know, people in the food industry will tell you that neither of those words really mean anything. All food comes from nature, right? So these are buzzwords that lack meaning. I'm not against all of these phrases that help people understand what you're about, that help you connect with customers, but just think about those words really hard. They matter, especially if you're putting them at the top of your page and saying, this is who we are, this is what we do. Just think really hard about those words. So this naturally is something you see on a grocery store shelf for somebody that isn't doing the other things, right? They're not organic, they're not pesticide free, they're not making any actual commitments, so they say natural to avoid having us say what they're really doing. I don't know anything about this farm, so I'm not saying that's the case, but I just avoid that word if you can. And then their photo at the top of this basket is like generic photo art, right? I mean, it looks totally generic, especially compared with their lesser quality big photo here. So you can see the difference there. If you're going to do a really photo-heavy website design, use good photos that look good at that size. So if they didn't have those kinds of photos on hand, they should go with a different platform that maybe is going to have more words at the top. And not do a full screen of a photo that's not good enough quality to carry the page. So on the bright side, their tabs are good, they've got good information, and you can tell you're at a farm website. So let's look at one more example here. So this one, right from the beginning, you're kind of like, I'm sorry, what are they selling? Roses and cows, and I see pigs and a farm country road. It's just sort of confusing. So I mentioned earlier a good example of a diversified farm website, and you should go look at that one, Flying Plow Farm, to compare it with this one. So this farm is doing a lot of things, but they're not making it clear and cohesive on their website. So it's hard to understand what they're doing. And maybe your business is like this, you've got a lot of things going on. Maybe it doesn't make sense to have all those things on one website. So this farm maybe should have a separate website or a separate tab for its Valentine's Day roses than for its butchered products. I just don't think those two images go together. I think it's kind of hard. I don't know that I'd be buying a cow share and then like, you know what, I am going to buy some roses today while I'm at it. So just be thinking about how this image collision strikes a customer who's not familiar with what you're doing, and that's why it's good to have other people looking at it to give you that first impression. Also, they apparently have a coffee shop and do weddings. They're a florist. Like, look at all these things at the top. It's just a little bit confusing to a customer who's new to your brand. So everybody really likes simple now, and that's the way things are going. Okay, so to back up a little bit, how do you act on this? What do you do first? I talked about it's good to sit down, research, and have some things lined up before you sit down to actually build the website. So think first about your goals. Maybe you want to write these down, have these kind of slated out before you jump into any of these platforms. So you want to inform, engage, and advertise your brand. The inform side is really going to happen through your website, perhaps your blog, and some newsletters. Maybe you decide what kind of mix of those things you want. Website's going to be your holding place where people go for information about you, and then these other ways are ways to give your customer new information as it comes up, so to keep them updated and engaged. And even more so the engagement side is going to be the social media, the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, are ways that you interact with customers, you advertise, and you establish a brand. And these are also, don't forget, free advertising. I know that it's easy as business people to feel annoyed that you have to participate, although you don't, but you feel like you have to participate in all these outlets, and it feels like it takes away from what you're doing sometimes. But on the bright side, this is free advertising. So it just takes some sweat equity, some time, and a little bit of investment to cultivate that audience online as well. And then what do you want? How do you want the user to interact with you through these platforms? Ask yourself some of these questions. Do you just want them to be able to engage with you, to see what life is like at the farm, or do you want to really interact with them through some of these platforms? So step 2, just a little more of a look at what using these platforms together can accomplish for you, so how it can bring more life to the website as it reaches out through these other avenues. So here are just some of the examples of those outlets and ways you can gear the same message toward different audiences through these outlets. So blog posts are going to be your longer posts, more text, full of photos, and then newsletters are more kind of information-based and telling your customer where the next event is, where to pick up their box this week. Willowsford Farm is the example here, and then they link to an online version of their newsletter from Twitter. So rather than also maintaining a blog, they're making their newsletter available online, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and they're making it available to their email subscribers and their Twitter followers. So you're making sure that when you create a piece of content, if you will, that it's getting seen by as many people as possible through these other channels. So the same for the blog post I wrote about a CASA presentation at a conference. I then promoted it on Facebook and Twitter so that that post could reach as many people as possible. So that's the underlying reason you're participating in all these other things. And then here's just a brief overview of some of those outlets and your options. So again, before you go, oh, I just need to get some marketing going, and you sign up for accounts on all of these, really think hard about the ones you want to participate in and remain active in. So I would say for your purposes, Facebook is going to be number 1, and maybe Instagram, and maybe Twitter. And we'll talk about those a little more. These are the more photo-heavy ones, and the ones that your customers are probably interacting on. So Facebook has the most people on it, so the most likely you're going to communicate with your actual customers and become a part of their social world. Twitter is a way to reach chefs and restaurants and stay up to date on food news. So find what fits. You do not have to do all of these, and I do not recommend that you do. So Twitter is, you can read here, Twitter is great for kind of real-time sales and conversations, great for connecting with chefs if you want to be in restaurants, and keeping up with a lot of things going on in the food world. Maybe you want to be active in like GMO debates and you want to retweet Civil Eats stories on there. You know, get on there if that's something you want to do. Blog is a way to communicate with people. If you have a lot of, if you kind of have like a hankering to be a writer on the side and you want to keep up a blog, you want to tell people what life is like on the farm, that's a big part of your processing. Or you have an intern, like I said, that wants to do that, jump on. But you also have to feed the beast and keep it fed, like we talked about. Facebook, a lot of people spend a lot of time on Facebook, and this is an effective way to engage with your customers. It also allows for multiple photos and links. So some customers really love to interact with their farm on there. Instagram, Pinterest, you know, those are, again, optional things, really image focused, a way to kind of continue branding and telling your farm's story through these other outlets. So again, think hard before you join any of these and think about whether it's something you want to do long term. Do you want to build and manage your own website and social media? So if you don't, is there someone in your farm family that is passionate about one of these? The publication I'm on staff with part-time, I manage the Twitter, another writer manages the Facebook, and then we have a web editor. So that's an example of how that works. It can be overwhelming and a huge time crunch if you're doing all of these things all the time. So pick which ones you want to do and do them well. And in conclusion, are you ready to build your own website, or are you looking for someone else to do that? It takes more time at the beginning, and then it becomes just a habit that you have to kind of update and maintain. So just be prepared that it takes some research, some time to get started, but once you get over that hump, it'll really be something you can continue to send customers to reiterate your message, and to really build your audience and benefit your bottom line. And we're going to look at some of the options if you do decide, hey, I want to do it myself. I want to, I think I can figure this out. I've figured out how to farm and do all these other things. Josh is going to give us a great demo of one of these host sites. So Squarespace is increasingly popular now, and one of the easier ones that also allows online sales. There's also WordPress, Wix, Weebly are some of the ones that you've dealt with that are more blog focused, or WordPress sets you up to do a blog as well. So I'm going to hand it off to Joshua. He's going to give us a great tutorial on how to get started with Squarespace. Thanks guys so much.
Great, thank you so much, Whitney. I'm actually gonna I think this would be a good time to pause for questions. And also, we wanted to just do a couple of quick polls to see where folks are at with their own websites. So if you can just take a second and click on your screen, you should see a poll right up there, and just go ahead and click, and then we'll report the results back to the whole group. And I also just wanted to mention, I'm sorry for the miscommunication earlier, there's only a questions box, there is not a chat box. So any questions that you do have for presenters or for technical folks, just pop them right in the questions box and we'll see them. So we'll just have this poll up for a little bit longer. So it looks like it's a pretty even split. We have 38 folks who have a website, 32 who don't, and 29 with a website in development. So that's cool that we're all at different stages. And then we have one other poll that we wanted to do quickly. Do you hope to sell products through your website? And if you have any other questions for Whitney's, I see them rolling in, so just send them my way. So 33 folks are interested in selling on their website, 16 are not, and maybe are 52. Oh, sorry, these are all percentages. So we're about kind of split again. So that's interesting. Good to know. So Whitney, here are a few questions that are coming in. Sarah just asked, she said, creating a blog is definitely something I'm interested in for my business. How often should we be keeping up with it? Is one post a week enough, or is that too much?
Oh gosh, that's a lot. That's great. If you can maintain it at one post a week, that's great. It is hard to do over time, especially when you're at high season. If you're a producer, that has like a really peak busy season, it can be difficult to do that. So maybe during that time of year, you want to pull back and do every other week or once a month. But that's also the time of year that you want to communicate the most with your customers. So just if you want to make sure it looks fresh, so sometimes you can do posts that are more evergreen, so they have a longer lifespan. But like right now on my personal blog, there's a blog post about the snow, which now that the weather is so nice, it looks totally irrelevant. So I know it's in my mind that, oh, gee, I really have to go do that, update that, add a new post as soon as I can. So I think once a month is great. Maybe I would say the bare minimum would be quarterly for a farm website blog.
Great. So another question is from Cindy. What do you think about advertising on Craigslist in the farm and garden section? Do you know if it works?
Oh, I don't know if that works, but it probably doesn't hurt, especially if you're going to sell those products in a public space where you don't have to be worried about a creepy person showing up at your farm. But I don't see why it wouldn't hurt to advertise in as many free channels as possible.
Great. Another question from Jane is, Whitney suggested natural versus organic has little meaning. Is certified naturally grown versus certified organic too vague?
No, certified naturally grown actually does mean something. So I hope I didn't offend anybody with that comment. So that is a certification, and what's great about your website is that you can then link to the certifier's website, and where people can learn more about the process that you went through to gain that certification. So you want to make sure that if people want more information, you make it easy for them to find it. Not all of your customers are going to really care, but some of them might really care, and they want to read everything there is to know about why you chose naturally, so a different certification than organic. A lot of your customers are really well versed on these nuances, and they understand why a lot of small farmers choose not to become certified organic. So that's not a new concept, but you want to explain why you did the specific route that you did, and why that's a benefit to them.
Great. And just to revisit a previous question, we just had a comment from Jennifer that Craigslist works well for her farm. So
great.
There you go. One other question from Deirdre. How do you get folks to follow you on Instagram? Only through links on website and Facebook?
Oh, so that question could apply to Twitter as well, or Facebook. So a lot of farms are really taking off on Instagram, and I think the secret is to get kind of one of those influential followers. Maybe you want to research the hashtags that are popular. So if you're doing grass-fed beef, look at which hashtags. So a hashtag is the pound sign that you put before a phrase that will aggregate a conversation around a topic. So look at other farms and that have a lot of followers, and look at how they're doing that. What hashtags are they using? So at every post, are they saying grass-fed, beef, certified, organic, certified, this, Farm Her, Farm HER is a popular one. So ways to kind of get discovered. Maybe you want to ask influential accounts to follow you outright. You know, ask them, hey, follow me, or can you reshare this post with your audience? So there's a lot of strategy that goes into this at a big level. So I would say the number one thing is to make sure you're enjoying participating in these outlets, because sometimes it takes a while to build that audience. But if you feel like it's something that fits into your daily routine and you enjoy doing it, then it's going to be worthwhile, and that's going to come through.
Great. Well, those are all the questions we have for now. If folks end up having more questions for Whitney, feel free to send them my way and we can revisit them a little bit later. But now I'm going to hand it over to Joshua to walk us through our Squarespace demonstration.
Okay, great. Can everybody hear and see my screen?
Yep, looks great and sounds great too.
Okay, all right. Hello, everybody. I'm Joshua Owens. I'm co-owner with Laura Beth Resnick of Butterbee Farm. We are a 2-acre cut flower farm in Pikesville. And I also, on the side, help farmers build their websites, specifically using the Squarespace platform. So I just want to give you a little taste of kind of what it looks like, you know, what you'll be seeing when if you decide to sign up and start building your website.
This is Joanna. I'm sorry, I forgot that we wanted to just do a quick poll to see who is using Squarespace so far, or who has used Squarespace so far. So we're just going to put that up on the screen quickly and see the results.
Okay, well, while we're getting those results, I'll talk for just a second. Whitney covered most of this stuff, but I assume a lot of you probably know what Squarespace is and the other design platforms like WordPress, Wix, and Weebly. It's if you don't know, it's basically a website builder for people who don't know how to program, you know, how to write HTML and CSS and that kind of stuff. So that gives you an idea of what it is. Why would you choose Squarespace? I don't know if I could answer that for you. I think you kind of have to do your own research and figure out which one would fit best for you. They all have pros and cons. So, you know, for us, it was important to have a good mobile integration, which Squarespace does really well. When you make your website, it'll format it, you know, for the iPhone and the iPad and stuff like that really well. And I think it has a nice professional look. So that was the other reason we went with Squarespace. It looks like our poll results are in here.
Yes.
Okay. It looks like 12% of you guys have worked with Squarespace, and the vast majority, 88%, have not. So let's get into it. How do you use Squarespace? Well, you're just going to Google it first of all. And we'll do that. You'll click on the squarespace.com website, and you will just click Get Started. This will take you to, you know, an option of build an online store or build a website. You're going to want to go for the website because you can still integrate a store into your website. And then from there, you scroll through here, look for something that just catches your eye. This is just the template that you're going to start with. All these images that you're seeing on here are just to give you a feel. So they're not actually going to be what, you know, your website's going to have on it. And after you've done that, you'll set it up, give them your email, and you can see it's about $8 a month. So, you know, it's relatively affordable, I would say, compared to a lot of the other ones. Also, they give you a 2-week free trial when you sign up. So I think, that gives you enough time to really decide whether this is for you or not. And, if you decide you don't like it, you can cancel and you won't have been charged. So that's pretty nice. So I'll go into a website that I've been just working on and show you what it'll look like. So once you've signed up, you've picked your template, you're going to see this right here. So you'll see pages, design, all this stuff on this side, and then sort of your preview of your website on the right-hand side. So there's basically 2 main areas I'm going to cover. The pages area and the design area. The rest of this stuff is a little more technical, and you really don't even need to get into it to create your fully fledged published website. So we'll go into pages first. And the way that Squarespace works is you can create and manipulate content, and that's in the pages area. And then you can also create your design or really change your design, the look. So it'll start with, a general outline of these are the fonts that it chose for you automatically, this kind of thing. If you go into design, that's where you're going to change font sizes, colors, maybe you don't want a white background. That's the kind of thing you would do there. But let's start with just getting our content in there. So you'll click on pages, and you'll see 2 main areas. You'll see a main navigation and an unlinked. Your main navigation is these tabs. So anything you put in the main navigation, you'll see home, what's in season, that's all going to show up on your landing page as an option to click on. So you want to be sure that anything you put there is going to be one of those pages that Whitney was talking about. It's something you've thought about that needs to be there that people want to see. Okay, so let's create one just together. And what you'll do is you'll click this plus sign to add something, and then you'll have all these little options. A page is the one you're going to start with, just general blank slate. These other ones have kind of formatting in them, and it's all pretty self-explanatory. So we'll start with page. We'll just call it a new page for this example, and hit enter, and there we've got it. Now we're on our new page. You can see it showed up in the navigation link up top here, and now we want to add content to it. So you'll see when I'm scrolling over here, all these little bubbles popping up. Those represent different areas of the web page that you can edit. So up top, you've got your site title. Right here, we talked about this, the navigation. In here, I know you can't see anything yet, but that's where your page content, your main stuff is going to go. And then down at the bottom, you've got your footer. This is a great place to have a phone number or a contact. So let's add content to the main area, and you're going to do that by, getting your mouse in there, and then you'll see this bubble pop up. Select Edit, and now we are in a mode where we're adding content to that specific area. Now the way that Squarespace, and I think a lot of these websites work, is anytime you add content, it's considered to be a block of space, like a physical rectangle. So I'll show you a really simple example. I'm going to add a block that is just a horizontal line. All right? So now we've got our block here, and you can see it took up this whole line horizontally. And if I wanted to add another block, it would either go up above this one, or it would go down below it. So let's add another block below the line block, and this time let's add an image. To add images, it's pretty straightforward. Again, you after you've selected image, this is going to take an image from your computer. So you click here, and then you'll decide, okay, that's the one I want. Add it. You'll have options here, and they're all, fairly straightforward. You want caption? Do you want a link? Do you want that image to be a link as well? You hit apply, and there it is. So you've got your line block now, and you've got your image block. And you can see it's a block because it's outlined right here, all the way around. Okay. Let's add one more block. Maybe we want a description of this image underneath. So let's add a text block this time. And you can see now it says right here. That means this area is your text block. So I can go ahead and say, look at our beautiful Sweet William. And there we go. We've added that text underneath the image. We can manipulate that text too. Very standard kind of Microsoft Word style. You've got your bold. You can bold the letters. You can italicize them, or you can, move them to the center. You can decide, I actually want this as a heading. All that good stuff. And then lastly, this is pretty useful. So I'll just show you while we're here. You can turn anything basically into a link. Any text or image can become a link. And, let's say you had, we'll do it in a new block, sign up for our CSA. Okay, I want people to click CSA, and that'll redirect them to maybe a sign-up form or another web page where they can read about it. So that's going to be, you highlight the word that you want to be a link, click this little icon, and there you go. You type in either a website, or most likely you're going to be using something that you've created already on your web page. So that would be under content, and that'll give you any page you've already created. This is probably a little confusing because I didn't show you about that. So I'll go back and show you what I mean. So right now I've just created this link to Baltimore City, which is a web page I've already created on this website. So now we'll save everything we just did, and going back, this is what I linked it to right here. So now when people click on CSA, they'll be redirected to this web page that I created. So we've now created content in the main navigation, this new web page, and we've linked it to a web page that I've already created, but it's the same process. You would click here, create your page, and then it would show up on this list. It's just that these don't show up on your web page. They're kind of hidden and very useful for things like this, where you want to link someone to something, but you don't want it to be plastered, at the top of your web page. So that pretty much covers. Oh, actually, no, it doesn't. I need to show you one more thing. With these blocks, there's a lot of tweaking you can do. Okay, so let's say I don't like how big this image block is. Let's say I want to make it a little smaller. Well, I can do that by dragging it right up here next to the line, and there we go. Now I've got kind of like a 2-column layout. Looks a little nicer, and maybe I even want just a little bigger. I can drag it over like that, and maybe I don't want the text underneath anymore, so I'll drag that up under my line block. All right, so that's pretty much how you manipulate content. it takes some playing with, and you can see that some things shift around when you move them. You got to play with it, but it gives you a good feel for how you're going to build a web page, block by block. Okay, so, and one more thing. Let's say you don't want your block anymore. You can remove it by dragging it, selecting and dragging it down to a trash can icon, or just clicking that trash can icon, and then it's gone. Alrighty, so now let's get into the design aspect. I know that was kind of design because we were moving blocks and kind of arranging them, but by design I mean actually fonts and colors, margins, that kind of thing is all going to be under design. So we were here under pages. We're going to go back home, click design, and then you get a whole bunch of different options. You can pretty much ignore everything and just start with style editor. That's the thing that's going to allow you to really craft the look and feel. Right here I've got a big site title, big header, and I've got it in black. Okay, I could change that. I could make it red if I wanted. I could make it more transparent and it's not there. I could change the font choice by going into right here. It says which font it is, and I have a whole list that I could change it to. If I don't like the look of that, maybe something different. But you really do want to play with this stuff to match, do I want like a modern look or do I want a vintage look? So yeah, tons of options. Play around with them a little bit. And let's see. The other thing you can do with your header is maybe you want a logo instead of your header. So that would be, again, back under the style editor, you would click under site header. Oh no, wait, that's not where it is. Sorry. Well, anyways, you can see even I'm still figuring things out in here. But you can do a lot with this style editor. And each section is sort of highlighted when you've moused over it. So if you want to, just change this font, just mouse over it and click, and you'll be changing that area. I want to change the main area, maybe give it, a different color for my headings in that area. Well, I could do that too. So that gives you a good sense of just what it looks like when you're behind the scenes. And now I will go into kind of the final steps. I know that was quick, but I want to leave time for questions. And this was mostly to give you a feel. A lot of this stuff you're going to have to kind of maybe do some Googling and look on YouTube. Squarespace website itself has really good tutorials, but hopefully you got a basic kind of understanding of what it'll take. So when you are done, the last step to creating your web page is going to be under here. You're going to have to go to settings and go into your domain, because currently Squarespace sets you up with this funky domain to start with. And so you've designed your website, you've got all the content, but you don't have your domain that you can tell people, hey, go to www.whateverfarm.com. Right now it's this. So when you're all done, you'll go into settings, click your domain, and you can, through Squarespace, they make it actually really easy. Just get a domain, search for, maybe we want Future Harvest, let's see. actually .com is taken, .org is taken, but we could do .net. Maybe we don't want futureharvest.net, so let's see if futureharvest.casa.com. Okay, so that one's available. You'll see, $20 for that, and that's an annual cost. But I think they give you the first year free. So that's how you would finish it off. You'd get your domain, and then instead of this up here, it would just be that futureharvestcasa.com. Then your website would be published and ready to go. There are many other options that I'm not covering here because I don't want to overwhelm you with information. And also, I don't think you need to go into everything to build your website. I think to start with, just having it simple, clean, get your basic stuff in there, and then you can start worrying about adding a lot of little things. Like you could add a shop in there, or you could add, excuse me, you can link your what's it called, the MailChimp. You could link your MailChimp to your website. That's all that stuff is possible. You can connect your Instagram, connect your Facebook, but that, I don't think to start with you necessarily have to do all those things. Just getting the content there is really good. And then lastly, in the future, once you've created a website, the last thing you want to do is you'll want to look at who's seeing your website, and Squarespace is nice for that. It's got this tab called Metrics, and you can see, when are people looking at it, what's your audience, and then you can also do this with Google, which has an even more detailed analysis, but it's nice to even see the Squarespace version. And the metrics stuff, I would say, is something, after you've established your website, I would recommend at least looking into this tab here, marketing, and then SEO, which stands for search engine optimization. And I know this is probably something that sounds really bland and dry, and it kind of is, but at least click on this and just read through it, because after you're all done, you have your website up and you're comfortable with it, this can really increase your audience and how many people are seeing it. And I won't go into it in detail, but it explains it right here. So you just follow these directions, click this link and follow those directions, and it's not too crazy. So set that up, after you've done everything, and it'll help a lot. Just some closing thoughts, a lot of reiteration on what Whitney was saying. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. They really are useful, and especially because modern websites use a lot of high-quality pictures. So you can see here I've got, this is a professional photographer. I made sure to credit him down here. Arrange things so that people aren't overwhelmed by information. So we don't have too many words here, and we have a good balance of pictures. You're going to always be changing things around when you build your website. So, feel free to move things and play with things, while your website's up and running, because you want to keep it alive and you want to give it attention. If you ever get stuck with things, I actually got stuck here as a good example. I wanted to have a map for people to be able to click and find a farm. And I didn't really know how to do that. I'm not a programmer. I don't know how to code things. But I just Googled it. I just went on Google and said Squarespace Google Map or something like that. And it's amazing. There's tons of videos and tutorials out there, and I think you'd be surprised how easy it is to do a lot of things that, if you had an idea about and you didn't know it was even possible, it probably is. So, yeah, always Google things if you get stuck during the creation of your website. Look on the Squarespace website, and yeah, lastly, have a realistic expectation. I know Whitney really covered this, but yeah, have a realistic expectation of how much time you're going to spend in the office doing this kind of stuff versus outside. It doesn't have to be a lot, but you do have to do it consistently over time, because otherwise things will get dated and they won't represent a cohesive website. So I think that pretty much covers my really brief tutorial. If anybody has questions, they're free to ask them now, or I think we're going to have a follow-up email list of questions as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Shasha. I have a few questions that have come in so far. Maybe could you go back to the templates page?
Sure.
Is that possible? Somebody asked, Deirdre asked, I have a hard time just seeing the difference between the templates on face value. Any hints?
Okay. I've used almost all of them, and honestly, they all share a lot of things. So my recommendation is just pick one and just go with it to start with. And I think over time you'll figure out what you don't like about it. But I agree, these images aren't really the best for kind of giving you exactly what it's going to look like, what your website's going to look like. And the thing is that with any of these templates, you can customize it so much that it won't necessarily matter that much. So I would just say, yeah, pick one that kind of speaks to you, and do you want your tabs in the middle or in the upper right? That's kind of one thing that doesn't change. Yeah.
Great. Kind of along those lines, Sarah asked, would you recommend a certain number of tabs on the top bar? How many is too many? If there's too many, do you have any advice on how to consolidate?
Yes. Let me get out of this real quick. I would recommend probably in the half dozen range. I wouldn't say too many more or than that. I think about 5 or 6 is really what I shoot for. And if you do have more tabs that you want to include, then what you're going to want to do is in your content mode, instead of creating a page, you're going to want to create a folder. Okay, and that way you can have a drop-down menu of tabs instead of just a single tab. This folder, any page you put in here, is going to become something that you will scroll over. So.
Great.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple people ask about transferring a domain from either WordPress or another platform to Squarespace. Do you know if that's possible?
Yes, it's very possible, and that is one of those things where you got to Google it. Almost every major domain provider is covered by Squarespace, and if it's not, it's just a matter of talking to them. They usually know how to set it up, but I'll show you right here under your domains. When you're setting it up, connect a third-party domain is where you're going to go. And there will be a lot of more instructions after you've typed it in and linked it. But yes, very possible to do with almost all the major domain providers.
Great. And along those lines, David asked, what are the advantages of Squarespace over something like WordPress?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not super familiar with the other websites, which is why I encourage everybody to really Google things. Maybe, try and find a YouTube video of someone demonstrating things. I do believe that Squarespace is fairly advanced in its design editing mode. I don't think many websites allow you the depth that Squarespace does as far as crafting, all these little bits here. And then, with WordPress, I would recommend at least buying a professional template if you're trying to do a website, because otherwise it really will look like a blog. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you're trying to build a website, you don't want it to look like a blog.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I use WordPress for my 2 sites, and I used like a free template. This was when I started, and I've just worked with what I've had. But one of the downsides to that, he mentioned it'll look like a blog. Some of the templates, you can't remove things like a date at the top of your front page, right? So it'll be your main page is how you've written it, but it'll have a date at the top like it's a blog, for example. So I know they've gotten more sophisticated, and a lot of their paid options are better, but it's just a matter of their format is coming more from a blog background than a website background that's going to allow these other functions like an online store. And the Squarespace will also, if you're at a farmer's market and you already use Squarespace for like credit cards and stuff, I mean, I love that when I shop at the market, everybody already has my information because Squarespace shares my email across the platform, for example.
Yes, I didn't cover the shop, but yes, Squarespace has an integrated shopping kind of commerce page right here, and it's very easy to set up. So yeah, definitely a plus for Squarespace.
And I'll just say I've worked with WordPress a little bit, and just to second what Joshua said about the customizability of Squarespace, like whatever template you have in WordPress, unless you know how to do coding, like that's the text you have, that's the size it's going to be, that's the location it's going to be. So this just seems very user-friendly in a way that I didn't experience with WordPress. We've got a couple more technical kind of questions. Gary wants to know whether you can overlay text over images.
Not really. It depends on the template. So some templates specifically have that, and some templates don't. What you can do is, for example, you can add, like to this image, if I wanted to add a caption, I could have that caption, overlay on that image, so it would come up here instead of underneath. But if you're wanting a piece of text to be all, big and kind of across the image, you would have to have created the image with that text already on top of it before you added it to the website. Great.
And then another question is whether you can have a blog as part of this site.
Yes. It's another option here. And you'll see blog is the option, and the format is very similar when you're making blog posts. You'll just have your title up there, and then again, it's all those blocks, same options. So you can add pictures, text, shrink them, move them around, and that's what we use on our website. I think it's a really good blog platform.
Great. Well, that seems to be about all the questions that we have, at least for now. If anybody has any final questions, go ahead and send them over before we wrap up. But I just want to say thank you so much to Joshua and Whitney for leading us through this presentation. It was so helpful, and it was great to see it in action. So thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, it looks like we have one last question. Is there a press this mode? I don't actually know what that means.
I'm not sure I know what that means either, but there is a something called a button, and I'm wondering if that's what you're referring to. You can add something called a button here, like that, and you can edit, you know, what that button says and what it links to. You know, add a URL, change the text on there, change the size of it. So that may be what you were asking, or may not be. I'm not sure what it.
It looks like it's more about sharing articles, maybe more like, but it sounds like it's just unique to WordPress.
Oh, are you saying like push this out through my other social media platforms? I wonder if that's what they're talking about. So where you publish a blog post and then it automatically sends it to Twitter and Facebook?
I see. I believe that is possible, and I haven't really messed with it, but I believe under settings, you can go to connected accounts, and when you've connected your Facebook and your Instagram and stuff, I think there's potentially, yeah, connecting social services enables you to push or pull data. So I think that's where it would be.
Yeah, and maybe under the blog page. Although I would encourage having different messages on each of those platforms. So writing a specific tweet that's different from the headline of your blog post, if possible. But those are easy ways to make sure you're pushing it out to all your platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, now is the official last call for questions. So send your burning desires this way, and then if that's it, we'll wrap up. Okay, it seems like we don't have any more questions coming in, so we can just end here. Thank you so much again to Whitney and